Daredevil Born Again sees the revival of the original Netflix series that started in 2015 resume over 6 years later on Disney+. From the initial announcement at San Diego Comic-Con 2022 to a creative overhaul in late 2023, it was not easy to bring The Man Without Fear back to its fans. The 9 episodes saw a mixture of new and old footage scrambled together to complete the season. While there are some highlight episodes and moments throughout, it does have some questionable pacing and character writing. However, considering its behind-the-scenes mess and what went into making the post-overhaul episode shine, Daredevil Born Again is one of the best MCU television shows in its library. Maybe not the best, but it's a fantastic step in the right direction. Daredevil was one of Netflix's most successful shows, a dark, gritty, and grounded superhero story with 36 episodes in total that saw blind lawyer and Devil of Hell's Kitchen Matt Murdock / Daredevil fight against the Kingpin of crime Wilson Fisk. After the cancellation in 2018, the future of Daredevil and the rest of the Defenders cast remained unknown. The characters were locked behind Netflix jail for 2 years, preventing any appearance or cameo in any non-Netflix Marvel project. So, when 2020 rolled around, Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio reprised their roles as Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk in Spider-Man No Way Home and Hawkeye, respectively. The doors for Daredevil's return into the MCU were now open. During San Diego Comic-Con 2022, a brand new Disney Plus series called Daredevil Born Again was announced, featuring 18 episodes with Cox and D'Onofrio returning. While filming started in 2023, it was paused due to the writer's strike in mid-June. Once production resumed, Kevin Feige and several other executives looked through the 6 episodes shot so far. To simply put it, the show wasn't working. Described as a legal procedural, it was very different from the Netflix series. Cox would not suit up until episode 4, causing more worries amongst the fandom. In addition, major side characters, Foggy Nelson and Karen Page, either died off screen or were not mentioned at all. Marvel let go all the writers and directors and went back to the drawing board. During this process, the company also realized it was finally time to make its television series actual shows. Instead of filming them like 8-hour-long movies, showrunners were now implemented instead of a lead writer. I did initially have faith in Marvel / Disney to make Daredevil Born Again. I enjoy most of the Marvel Disney Plus shows despite nearly every series having flaws. Loki seems to be the outlier where it's genuinely a good piece of television across 2 seasons. And from the looks of the Born Again set photos, it was indeed going in a different direction, which I was totally fine with. Now, to give Karen and Foggy 0 screen time, that's where I have an issue. They're literally the heart of the show and keep Matt grounded as he continues to live his double lifestyle. It makes no sense to not have either character in Matt's life, especially Foggy. To quickly get production started again, the new showrunner and directors were found only 16 days later. Dario Scartapane, who was an executive producer on Netflix's The Punisher, would be Born Again's showrunner. Directing duo Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead of Loki Season 2 and Moon Knight would also join the team. Deborah Ann Wool and Eldon Henson were cast to return as Karen Page and Foggy Nelson respectively. Wilson Bethel would also return as Benjamin Poindexter, aka Bullseye. In addition, Sandrine Holt was previously cast to play Vanessa Fisk, but the overhaul saw the return of Ayla Zuyur to bridge the gap between the previous series more. With the new leaders and a returning cast in position, the next batch of episodes can enter production. The previous 18-episode order was now split into 2 seasons, with Season 2 currently only having 8 episodes, rounding out to 17 episodes in total. The newly shot set photos quickly leaked online, giving Born Again free promotion just by having Karen, Foggy, and Matt back together. Faith and excitement were back on for the show, which is very much needed looking at the state of the MCU at the time. Now, why did I spend over 4 minutes explaining Daredevil Born Again's backstory? Because it's integral to the show's history and explains a lot of the faults the show has. It doesn't excuse them, but gives further context as to why certain episodes feel a certain way. Daredevil Born Again is a stitched-up job between a newly shot pilot, pre-overhaul episodes 2 to 7, and the post-overhaul episodes 8 and 9. While the new footage is far better than the pre-overhaul stuff, there's still moments and plot threads to enjoy. Episode 1, it shows Foggy's death and begins with a cool Daredevil and Bullseye fight sequence, but the rest of the episode is just setting up the season. It's not inherently bad, but there's not a lot of leeway for the new team to do what they want until episodes 8 and 9. Killing off Foggy was a major rumor given the pre-overhaul version. Many fans, including myself, thought once Eldon Henson returned, he would have a major role for the season, right? It was quickly revealed that he would only appear in a few episodes, which kind of confirmed in my head that he wasn't making it. Definitely not my favorite creative choice, but if they had to work in the confines of the previous show's vision, I'm glad they showed how it happened. The Daredevil and Bullseye fight is an exhilarating way to get the show started. It's a one-shot take, which I appreciate, paying homage to the original show's many one-shot sequences. This one is littered with CGI and smoke effects that make the action hard to see. I don't mind CGI in my superhero media, but when it comes to Daredevil, the previous show never used it due to the lack of budget. All the action and movement was practical, which brought an extra layer to the show's groundedness. For Born Again, there's a bunch of CGI shots done where they could have done it practically, especially Daredevil running across the rooftop here. He is indeed aura farming when he drops from the fire escape despite the very obvious CGI. I just want it to be less obvious next season. The diner scene was hyped up by the cast and crew during the press tour, and it was great. It does loosely tie the events from Echo in here, and you could really feel the intensity between Matt and Wilson. Now to jump into the pre-overhaul footage, most of it remains with a few new scenes spliced in. Anytime you see Zuyu's Vanessa Fisk, it's new footage. The fight scene between Daredevil and Muse at the end of episode 6, also new footage. I believe the Punisher scene in episode 4 is also new because Bernthal was reluctant to return given the material he had in the show's original version. The old footage isn't bad, nor is it great either. The highlight during this portion of the season is episodes 2 and 3. The White Tiger storyline felt like a modernized take from the Bendis comic. This was probably my most anticipated aspect of Born Again's story, and they nailed it. From the initial setup of Matt representing Hector Ayala to the courtroom scenes, it's everything I could have wanted from a Trial of the Century adaptation. Camar de los Reyes brings Hector to life in his amazing performance, and I can't imagine anyone else playing him. May he rest in peace. Episode 4 shows the aftermath of Hector's death and Matt's own investigations into his passing. Everyone remembers the conversation between Frank and Matt, but the episode also has some good character building scenes too. The way the camera moves in this season, especially during Justin and Aaron's episodes, is stunning. In this episode, episode 4, I love going from the taxi car with Daniel onto the streets with Leroy Bradford. Matt handling his case was a nice change of pace. For once, he's not representing someone that is a vigilante. It also speaks politically about how the system would much rather spend more money to lock up Bradford than to feed him. It gives Matt another reason to dive into his vigilante tendencies. When Matt finds Frank, up to this point of the series, he's been bottling up his emotions regarding Foggy's death. I love that Frank is the one to bring his emotions out. Bernthal always puts on a show when he plays Frank Castle, and it's almost like he never left. Frank reads right through Matt that the tragic passing of Foggy has been eating him up, but he chooses to hang up the suit and not live that life anymore. The most honest thing Matt does during this sequence is when he hits Frank, because that's his true nature. Him suppressing this will only make things worse before it can get better. These two butting heads and their ideologies clashing will never get boring so long as Cox and Bernthal are given good material to work off of. Matt hanging up the suit isn't anything new. We've seen him put the suit away in season 3, but he's still living his life as Daredevil, investigating Wilson's takeover of the FBI. Matt didn't stop being Daredevil just because Foggy died. He committed the grave sin of attempted murder. He wanted Dex dead, and although Matt was unsuccessful, the act of even trying to kill someone is big enough to hang up the suit. It's confirmed in episode 9 that Matt feels this way, and you can see it throughout the season. His Catholic background is a major part of his character and why he operates with a no-kill rule. Everyone deserves forgiveness. Everyone deserves a second chance. When Matt listens to the church in episode 2 or prays at the start of episode 6, he's still very much in tune with his religious background. Sure, it's not as prominent or as in your face compared to the Netflix series, but Matt is still Matt. Taking the bullet for Fisk in episode 8 could have been viewed as his way to repent for his sin, to show God that he's still a good man, that he's willing to protect his worst enemy from death if it means to save another life. Also, he couldn't let Wilson be a martyr in his anti-vigilante movement. Episode 5 is a one-off episode that's very disconnected from the overall plot. I personally like this episode because it feels like a comic book, a self-contained story that requires no additional material. It's very entertaining with a whimsical Irish bank robber. Cox acts as his helpless blind man multiple times, and it's quite funny. The action sequences aren't too bad either, with the staircase takedown and the final brawl between Matt and the leader. You can even look at this episode as Matt becoming more comfortable with his darker half, becoming a vigilante in this episode to save the lives of others. Also, Ms. Marvel's dad, Yusuf Khan, shows up and he's fun to watch, giving the series a definitive connection to the MCU. The 6th episode premiered along with 5, and you can totally see why. Finally, Muse gets the spotlight where he's been lurking in the background, kidnapping people for his blood murals across the city. I honestly wish there was more build up to this moment where Fisk's administration slowly discovers Muse. Instead, it's all dumped into our laps and feels very rushed. Muse's kidnapping of Angela Del Toro gives Matt a reason to finally put the suit back on, and this moment was pure hype. We've been watching Matt play the sidelines and only stepping in when absolutely necessary. Besides episode 5, saving Nikki Torres in episode 2 as a key witness in Hector's case was the only other time that Matt really gave into the violence. Cosmonaut Marcus said he should have returned as Daredevil here, which I can see why he would say that, but the payoff wouldn't be satisfying. There's very little buildup up to this point where his redemption or return to his vigilante side wouldn't be earned. You can also tell during the scene, Matt is fighting against himself, like he doesn't want to fight them, but only does when his life is threatened. It's good build-up to lead us into the climax of episode 6. The fight choreography is absolutely peak. Shout out to Philip Silvera for making the hand-to-hand action feel straight out of the Netflix series. Switching back and forth between Matt and Wilson further emphasizes the dual storyline Born Again is going for, where Matt is suppressing Daredevil and Wilson is suppressing Kingpin. Because if Daredevil is able to come back, Wilson should be Kingpin too. Episode 7 is by far the worst episode of the season. The beginning conversation between Wilson and his men has terrible editing and ADR spliced in.
Freak. And we have nothing.
Well, that's not entirely true, sir. A girl named Angela Del Toro was dropped off at Presbyterian late last night. Says she actually escaped from Muse.
She's still alive.
She lost a lot of blood.
At this point in the show, nearly every episode has had a single line or a few lines of ADR to give the characters an extra piece of dialogue. Episode 1 has Foggy say cheers to Kirsten.
Cheers.
And episode 4 has multiple lines with the Punisher, such as the Fanboys line and the first ever mention of Bullseye, all ADR lines recorded in post.
Bullshit fanboys, huh?
So what now? Every day Bullseye goes to the chow hall, eats his slop. You know he gets to breathe the same air that you breathe.
ADR, or automated dialogue replacement, is when the production goes back in and has the actors re-record lines already said by their characters or to add new ones. In Born Again, it's mostly to sneakily add in new lines not previously said by the actors, and I caught it nearly every single time because I was wearing headphones. Still, the ADR quality is never as good as the normal audio dialogue, which is a problem with the whole ADR techniques used in Born Again. The ADR is so jarringly obvious in this scene. The best part about episode 7 is Heather and Muse's therapy session. It feels intense and unnerving to hear him open up to Heather more. Now, Muse as a whole in Born Again is a botched adaptation. There's never any significant buildup or long waiting suspense for his character. It's all dumped into episodes 6 and 7, which prevents him from sticking around. Imagine if Dex in season 3 of Daredevil on Netflix only had the hype moments where he fights Matt on several occasions, but we never get to see into his childhood or his stalking behavior towards Julie. We wouldn't be invested into his character, and that's how it feels in Born Again again with Muse. He's such a cool character and a very different Daredevil villain from what we've seen so far. A mass serial killer who uses his victim's blood for art. It's pretty dope, and I can do without his inhuman powers for a live action version. However, Muse is never given any real character development. He never even has a whole conversation with Matt Murdock Daredevil. He never talks to him whatsoever. He only talks to Heather. Yeah, it's cool that he pops in every now and then to let the viewers know he's in the show, like in episodes 2 and 4, but like I said, it's not significant development. It makes episodes 6 and 7 fall flat. Imagine if we had brief scenes to show that Muse is seeing Heather on a semi-regular basis. The first time we watch their session, we as the viewers are supposed to believe that they have been seeing each other for a while. Then when Detective Kim is dumping Muse's backstory in Fisk's office, I was like, oh my god, like that's a whole other issue with the side characters in general, just dumping plot into the characters' lap. Muse's backstory as a rich kid who didn't like his Taekwondo teacher, it's just not it. Also, giving Muse an actual name as Bastion Cooper was so out of left field. We never knew his name in the comics, but he was still an engaging and interesting villain for Daredevil to fight. Every character doesn't need a backstory. Keeping Muse as this crazed serial killer using human blood for art was all they had to do. Instead, they gave him these extra layers that did not work. Speaking of, the second encounter between Daredevil and Muse isn't as exciting as their first. The punches didn't have the same impact and felt kind of flat in the overall execution. Silvera is still credited as supervising stunt coordinator, but he's not part of the second unit directing team as he is within episodes 1, 6, and 9. This is probably a pre-overhaul fight scene given the choreography and Daredevil's helmet. In the new footage, Cox's nose hangs out from the bottom, while the old footage covers most of it. I know, the layers to this new and old footage is insane. I did not expect Heather to kill Muse because it feels like his character arc was just beginning. There is word that Muse will return for season 2, but in what capacity since he was declared dead? I hope we see more of Muse because he is one of the best modern Daredevil villains. But we'll just have to wait and see. Wilson leans into his anti-vigilante task force more by giving them credit for taking down Muse when everyone knows it was Daredevil. I've been holding off on talking about Wilson's side of the story because, to be honest, his stuff isn't as compelling as Matt's is. He's trying to navigate as the new mayor of New York City, trying to get past yellow tape as much as possible while still playing between the lines. His new surrounding cast, Sheila, Daniel, and Buck, are fine. Daniel was hyped up as his character who's going to steal the show every time he's on screen. Michael Gandolfini is a fantastic actor, but I don't know. His diehard loyalty for Wilson seems a bit over the top, and I know that's the point. Maybe Wilson gets Daniel's hands dirty in season 2 and continues his protege to master relationship. Right now, he's fine. Buck is just James Wesley 2.0, but lacks substance. Wilson loved Wesley like a best friend, and we don't know anything about Buck. He's just a really cool, good-looking guy who will do whatever Mayor Fisk wants him to do. That's it. Sheila is the most interesting character out of the trio because she actually does stuff and has a moral line she's constantly crossing, trying to keep Wilson at bay with his many ideas while understanding who she's working for and what needs to get done for her job. She could have thrown Daniel under the bus when the Union Buster story hit, but she stuck around to watch the conversation and have Daniel's back in a sense. The most insane thing Sheila does is rat out Gallo with the voice recording, effectively killing him in the process. Her alliance obviously lies with Wilson and the administration, but I have a feeling she can be swayed the other way once shit hits the fan. Wilson navigating his new political position while becoming Kingpin behind the scenes is cool in concept, though I felt like he didn't really do a whole lot throughout the season. He has scenes where he's slightly dipping into his Kingpin ways, like blackmailing Gallo before beating up Adam in episode 6, but I think between those two moments, there's not much else. His marriage problems with Vanessa is a compelling storyline, but it was only happening because he decided to cut ties with his criminal underworld. Vanessa has every right to be upset because she was creating their empire into her own. They only find resolution in their marriage when she kills Adam, which was a pretty shocking twist, and he becomes Kingpin again. Both parts of Wilson's story didn't really stick, which causes his part of the show to not be as exciting as Matt's. Watching him get tortured with the singing children was amusing, and murdering Gallo with his bare hands was pretty raw, I'm not gonna lie. But again, those are just moments. The gradual descent back into Kingpin isn't as strong compared to Matt. I briefly mentioned the problem with the side characters in Born Again, where they're just dumping plot into Matt or Wilson's lap, and that's what most of them do. Cherry is the #1 culprit for this because his whole character is meaningless otherwise. He only pops in when he needs to talk to Matt about not being Daredevil or tell Matt something that only he would know due to his ties as a retired NYPD officer. We're supposed to believe that he's good friends in Matt's circle, but nothing in the show demonstrates why we should care about him. He's also one of the only people in the new cast that knows Matt is Daredevil, and it doesn't feel earned. He just happened to walk on the roof when Matt takes off his helmet after the Bullseye fight. Nothing about Cherry is redeemable. He's 100% a replacement for Karen because for some reason the pre-overhaul team didn't want her in the show. Kirsten is the Foggy replacement, and she's fine, still not doing a whole lot since she's in the dark about Matt's other life, and also just dumps information to Matt's lap whenever reasonable. Heather Glenn is Matt's love interest for the season. They do have some cute and fun scenes together, but we never get to see why they chose each other as partners. I'm not a hater of her because I actually think she's one of the smartest characters in the show, as she becomes fishy about Matt after episode 6. Her anger and confusion with Matt is reasonable. He's not the same man he was in episode 1 as he behaves in episode 8. His transformation back into Daredevil destroys his relationship with Heather, which makes it reasonable why she would end up joining Fisk's administration in the end. I know Matt has tried to tell her multiple times to stay away from Fisk, but she doesn't trust him based on his new behavior. The mayor has obviously influenced her opinions about vigilantes, and the encounter with Muse did not make things better. She already had a negative opinion on masks and their true meaning in society. It is a bit confusing with how much Heather knows about Matt. Like, Matt didn't discuss how many times he took down Fisk in the past and why he was so shocked by his electoral win in episode 1, or Heather's selective research, where she knows Matt has represented vigilantes before, but nothing about Fisk has ever come up. It's very obvious that they were never meant for each other, and the lack of transparency with what Heather knows and what she doesn't know makes it confusing to follow her character. The police have a strong presence in Born Again in order to tackle the misuses of the Punisher symbol. Powell is a recurring police officer who butts heads with Matt in several episodes. He might even be able to put together that he's Daredevil at some point. A fun antagonist that could have been a one-off character, but they keep having him inserted within certain episodes, and he will likely return within season 2. Chief Gallo was honestly a pretty cool character. He saw right through Fisk in their first encounter and called him out as Kingpin. He's the only one on the force actively trying to take action against Mayor Fisk, but that obviously led to his downfall. Detective Cole North is introduced, and I was so hyped for his character to make an appearance. He's one of the best additions from recent Daredevil comics introduced in 2019 by Chip Zdarsky. Both versions share a similar backstory from Chicago's police department before being let go. The differences are based on their actual moral ground. North was let go in the comics when he mistakenly shot a 16-year-old boy reaching for a weapon when it was just his phone. The boy lived but made a mistake nevertheless. In the show, North beats up a guy for lying about an oxy deal he had with a kid. Obviously, not the correct thing to do. It makes the show's version of North look more like an asshole as opposed to making a genuine mistake. The difference of intent is vastly different. The nail on the head that makes Born Again's Cole North complete character assassination is being the man who killed Hector Ayala. Like, what do you mean he did that? North doesn't outright confess to it, but he's not denying it either. The skulls on the vests are pretty identical, so it looks like he is the killer. What made Zdarsky's take on Cole North so interesting was his moral dilemma with the justice system. He wants his job to matter, but when he realizes the corruption within and the actual good Daredevil and the other vigilantes bring to the table, he flips the switch. Born Again's take on Cole North is just bad. I don't know how they redeem it or change it from here because the building also blew up. We can only assume North did not make it out alive, but we'll see if he appears in season 2. The final 2 episodes see the return of Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson as directors, and man, they absolutely cooked. Episode 8 brings Bullseye back into the story, and these guys just understand the character. The light changing to blue is such a cool touch, shining on Dex's mental state. There's so many layers to this scene between Matt and Dex where they haven't had a talking scene with each other before, just fighting it out. The line about good men defending their worst enemies hits home when Matt saves Fisk later on, but also just good character writing in general. Matt knows that Dex isn't lying, that he needs to escape to show Matt the truth. So Matt still smashes his head into the desk, giving Dex a way out once he's in the infirmary. This scene has to be my favorite because Wilson Bethel's movement feels straight out of the Netflix series. All this mischief and chaos to have Dex crash yet another Fisk party. The stakes and tension feel just as high as they did in season 3. The unknown of who Dex is shooting, either Wilson, Vanessa, or even Matt. Matt, during this whole episode, has fully given up on his life and goes back to his Daredevil personality.
We're not serving justice here, we're babysitting chaos.
Has to be the hardest line Charlie Cox delivers this season. He knows what needs to be done if justice is to be served in his city. Finding out that Vanessa is the one who put the hit on Foggy was surprising, but a little predictable as a comic book reader. You see, during Ed Brubaker's run on Daredevil, Foggy is also killed, but is quickly revealed early on in the story that he's alive. While Matt continues to find clues related to Foggy's death across the globe, it's revealed to be Vanessa Fisk. Now, is Born Again going to keep Foggy alive? I have no idea, but Eldon Henson is expected to return for season 2. We don't know in what capacity. It could be flashbacks or in the present day. The address number for Nelson Murdock and Page is number 468, which ties back to the Daredevil comic of The Secret Life of Foggy Nelson, where it's revealed Foggy is alive and under witness protection. Now, he could be alive, but he could stay dead. I hope he returns, but I'll hold my breath until season 2's full release. Episode 9 is the season finale and ties everything together. We get 100% confirmation that Vanessa put the hit out on Foggy, with Bullseye toying with his mental health to get what she wants. I honestly love how evil Vanessa Fisk is. It's a natural evolution for her character as she's watched Wilson over the years be the kingpin of crime. Now she's doing it herself. Matt waking up in the hospital only to call Heather Karen has to be the funniest moment in the episode. I would have been done with him too at that point, girl. Don't worry about it. The action sequence with Daredevil and the Punisher delivers on nearly every single front. The dialogue leading up to it is pure gold. I love how their dialogue is a lot more bantery now compared to the seriousness of the Netflix series. They can be playful and sarcastic in their lines, making these scenes more enjoyable to watch. The violence is top-notch stuff, a thrilling and bloody sequence that needs to happen again. Karen Page is finally reintroduced, and she has a complicated relationship with the boys. The fandom has named Karen Page and Frank Castle as Castle, shipping the duo together. I mean, they definitely have chemistry, especially if you watch the solo Punisher series. The fact that Matt digs into this later and pretty much confirms Frank's heart rate jumped when he saw her is hilarious. That would explain the aftershave and the haircut, alright. But it appears Karen might have her eyes on Matt, given her adrenaline, quote-unquote, spiking when they reunited. Honestly, I don't care who ends up with who, so long as it makes sense for the characters and the story presented. They all have a great amount of baggage with each other, but maybe that's why they like each other so much. I nearly cried when Matt started going through the old box of stuff from The Office. The goddamn avocados at law sign was a nice touch, remembering the good times with Foggy. Frank confronting the anti-vigilante task force as they continue to use the symbol for their cause was another phenomenal action sequence. The brutality Frank displays on screen might be outmatched by what was done in his own series. Powell saying they quote-unquote admire his work is so funny because it's very clear Frank operates outside of the law. They love to idolize him when they should be doing the opposite. The task force is supposed to protect and serve, while Frank will be judge, jury, and executioner on whoever steps in his way. They don't understand Frank, just like how anyone who proudly wears the Blue Lives Matter Punisher symbol hasn't read a single comic book in their life. I love that the skulls on their vests are badly drawn, further emphasizing how stupid they look. Now, after Gallo is killed, the rest of the episode is a straight up setup for the next season. Matt looks at the task force outside of Red Hook, and Karen convinces him to fight it another day. He'll need an army of vigilantes on his side if he wishes to take down Fisk, which directly leads into season 2. It looks like the Newton brothers confirmed that the MCU Spider-Man theme appears in this speech, and wow, like that's an amazing way to hint at what's possibly in Daredevil's future. The composers have done an outstanding job with the score, on par with the original show in my opinion. Now, the possibility of Daredevil appearing in a future Spider-Man movie seems more possible as each day passes by. These two are the most well-known vigilantes in Marvel's New York City, so it would be dumb as hell to not get Spider-Man in on the storyline at some point within the Webheads movies. I understand the whole rights issue between Marvel and Sony, where more often than not, Sony wants something different than what Marvel / Kevin Feige / Tom Holland want, but if Sony just plays nice, we could see another exciting trilogy of movies where Kingpin and Daredevil can appear on the big screen. Obviously, it would be cool as hell to get Spider-Man in an episode of Born Again, but then again, right issues. And the only thing we've gotten with them in costume together was in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which was a great episode. The final talk Matt shares with Karen, reflecting on the mask and the journey he's gone through during the season, is powerful. He's grown again and understands his role as Daredevil more than ever. The post-credits scene should lead directly into the Punisher special presentation, also premiering next year alongside season 2. The way Frank uses this guy's admiration for him against him is so beautiful. Maybe Bernthal can finally understand the character he's playing between now and then to fully immerse himself into Frank Castle. If I had to compare episodes 8 and 9, it would be like Infinity War and Endgame. Both great films, but Infinity War is more concise. It knows what it's doing and has solid pacing from beginning to end. Endgame is a great spectacle with memorable set pieces and caps off that era of the MCU. Episode 8 is Infinity War and Episode 9 is Endgame. The Punisher and Daredevil team up, something fans have been waiting for years for, and it's perfect. Fisk killing off Gallo has to be one of the most fucked up things Marvel has done in their cinematic universe. However, the later half of the episode is purely setup and doesn't have much weight after those key moments. Episode 8 is paced extremely well, never a dull moment with all the events of the previous 7 episodes capped off nicely. There isn't a major fight sequence, but the tension and build up to the final moments are pure cinema. Now, let me talk about the quote-unquote continuity issue of Daredevil Born Again. So, when fans jump from season 3 of the original show to the revitalized Born Again, time has both passed in the real world and the show. Over half a decade has gone by, which means many holes and gaps need to be filled. Some of these gaps can be filled in with their many MCU cameos in Spider-Man, Hawkeye, She-Hulk, and Echo. In exactly what order? I'm going to assume chronologically Echo's fight against Daredevil takes place during the blip, and everything else you could kind of throw in wherever. The timeline gets even more confusing in a sense, like when does Fisk have the time to take Maya Lopez under his wing? It can't all take place during the blip because that was only 5 years and Lopez was a full-grown adult by the time she encountered Daredevil. It's very obvious that Disney/Marvel had no initial intention on bringing the past continuity into Born Again before the overhaul. While they were placing Cox and D'Onofrio in various MCU projects, the team didn't really think about the timeline and what it meant to the overall narrative, which is why when Born Again received an overhaul, the new team leaned into the past material more. I mean, I don't know why they didn't do that from the start, because fans were going to associate Cox and D'Onofrio with those versions of the characters. Although I enjoy many of the Marvel Disney Plus shows, none of them have come close to the peak that is Daredevil on Netflix. Yes, even Loki. The show does a sloppy job explaining how Fisk got out of prison because he was acquitted, but how exactly? Nadeem is mentioned, so shout out to him, but his death gets undone by Fisk roaming free and now elected as New York City's mayor. I'll be honest, I'm not that hurt by Nadeem's death meaning nothing in Born Again. Obviously, he's one of the best original characters in any comic book movie/show, but I'm also a comic book reader. I'm used to jumping into new stories and having the sort of quote-unquote status quo be reset to 0. Would I have liked the narrative continuity from season 3 to Born Again make more sense? Absolutely. But given the circumstances of using previously shot footage and splicing in new scenes and new episodes at the beginning and end, Dario and the rest of the team did their best to tie everything together. It's messy, but it somewhat works. This does get me excited for Born Again Season 2 because now the new team can just run freely and do as they please. No more previously shot footage to hinder them from their vision. And from the looks of the set photos so far, we're in for one hell of a ride. At the end of the day, Daredevil Born Again is a mixed bag. The pilot episode is trying to give further context to what's about to happen for the season during the pre-overhaul episodes. Some new footage inserted when appropriate, with the final 2 episodes trying to make way for the new direction for season 2. If I had to rank Born Again against the previous 3 seasons of the show, it's not better than any of them. It's still a top 5 MCU television show, easy. You have to admit it's still a miracle the show managed to be as coherent as it is, considering the stitching of new and old footage together. Daredevil Born Again is setting up a Marvel's version of the character for their streaming service. While it's nowhere near as consistent as the previous series, there are sparks of magic within certain episodes that make me believe season 2 will be on par with what was done previously. It's a far cry from the worst MCU television series, but it's still not the best either. And yeah, that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys have not already, you can subscribe. I put new videos up on Saturdays. Follow me on social media at TV Sonic Gaming. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, pretty much everything. Also check out my podcast called the Travis and Damien Podcast. We talk about games, movies, and anime every other week, and we have extensive chats about every single episode on there. And yeah, so thank you guys for watching this video once again. Now, see you guys next time with more videos.